All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer. Today, we're tracking one of the absolute best, most unexpected glow-ups you will ever see. We're following the epic journey of a guy named Uchimura. He's a man who goes from being a completely undervalued, invisible corporate drone to an absolute strategic genius in a fantasy world. Seriously, if you've ever felt underappreciated at your job, you are going to absolutely love the masterclass in management, strategy, and self-worth that we're about to unpack. So picture this. What actually happens when a regular guy, someone used to just surviving toxic office politics, gets suddenly dropped into a realm of magic and monsters? In his previous life, Uchimura was the very definition of overworked and undervalued. I mean, he poured his absolute heart into his company, only to just sit back and watch his colleagues get promoted while he was constantly transferred to these absolute dead-end departments abroad. He was basically a graveyard for his company's hardest, most thankless tasks, just completely ignored by management. That is, until he was suddenly summoned to the underworld by a completely different kind of boss. The contrast between Uchimura's two lives is literally night and day. On one side, his human boss in the old world was insanely toxic, demanding impossible tasks, offering zero recognition, and literally telling him he's just a waste of money. But on the other side, we have Lord Mao, the Demon King, the ultimate supportive boss. When Lord Mao recruits Uchimura, he doesn't threaten him. No way. He offers executive benefits, respects labor rights, gives him the authority of a department head, and most importantly, he actually validates Uchimura's hidden talents. Lord Mao tells him straight up, those old bosses were idiots who only valued what was right in front of their faces, completely ignoring the crucial, heavy lifting done behind the scenes. And because of that support, Uchimura's ascent is incredibly rapid. Just think about this timeline for a second. Day 1, he's brought in as the foreign affairs manager, literally one of the 4 elite generals, despite having zero magical powers. Week 2, he negotiates the Minotaur Pact. Month 1, the Ogre Alliance. Month 2, he breaks a massive merchant monopoly. And by month 3, appointed king's successor. Armed with nothing but his corporate business acumen, he changes the landscape of an entire fantasy world. He operates as the ultimate underdog hero, using negotiation, market analysis, and supply chain management to solve problems that magic simply couldn't touch. So let's break down exactly how he pulled this off. Act 1. The first pitch. As a newly minted executive, Uchimura's first major test is securing a pact with the fierce Minotaur tribe. Now, negotiations had totally broken down, but instead of using force like everyone else, Uchimura applies cultural empathy. It's a classic international business skill. He realizes that the previous negotiator, a pretty hot-headed demon named Humandra, had completely misread the situation. The Minotaur chief, Tyrius, was saying no super loudly, but Uchimura recognizes that in some cultures, loud emotional responses are actually a sign of passionate negotiation, not rejection. Furthermore, Humandra had thrown away the hay in Tyrius's room, thinking it was just trash. But Uchimura realizes that massive minotaurs need hay for beds so they don't absolutely crush the furniture. By simply providing culturally appropriate hospitality and just listening, Uchimura secures the alliance overnight. Act 2. Mergers and magical acquisitions. Having proved his worth, the stakes escalate big time. Uchimura now has to secure a massive merger with the proud, incredibly powerful ogre tribe. But their arrogant patriarch, Ugri, demands the impossible. He wants the Demon King's head. Yikes. Uchimura knows that when there is no room for negotiation, you withdraw, because throwing a tantrum would just harm their brand reputation. Instead, he orchestrates a brilliant corporate squeeze. He targets the ogre's supply chain. He travels to all the smaller surrounding demi-human tribes that the ogres rely on for food and trade and brings them into the demon army first. Uchimura effectively isolates the ogres completely. It's a textbook business move, right? If the big company won't buy your product, you sell it to all the small companies around them until the big guy is literally forced to the table. And it works perfectly. But get this, Uchimura's everyday business skills are basically a superpower everywhere he goes. Take this side quest with a dying food stall selling a traditional dish called shamasu. The owners were about to go bankrupt due to a massive unsold inventory, so Uchimura steps in and applies market repositioning. He realizes the dish is currently being sold to the elderly, but it has this mild flavor that's actually perfect for customization. So he invents a romantic marketing story, ties it to a local festival, and suddenly pitches the food to young couples. Bam! He sells out the entire stock in a single day, proving that sometimes you don't need a new product, you just need a new target audience. And this brilliantly illustrates his mindset, which leads to his next major achievement, mass production.
Lord Mao tasks Uchimura with finding a way for non-magical beings to use magic. So Uchimura partners with the great sorcerer, Selfie, who has this amazing prototype for a magic device. Only problem, it is way too expensive to produce. Uchimura uses reverse engineering logic here. He strips down all the costly, unnecessary features, realizing it doesn't need to cast multiple spells, just one specific beast-repelling spell. By doing this, they can use low-grade, super cheap magic stones. They create the Rosemary device, an affordable, mass-produced product that immediately saves impoverished villages from monster attacks. It's a total game changer.
Act 3. Market Warfare. Okay, so with mass production up and running, Uchimura is sent to the super wealthy land of gold. His mission? Secure a trade deal with the unpredictable King of Rampage to ensure a steady flow of gold into the demon army's economy. To win him over, Uchimura uses a brilliant psychological tactic. The King of Rampage is arrogant. He's used to the absolute finest things. So Uchimura intentionally shows him inferior silver items first. The king obviously destroys them, totally insulted, but Uchimura has successfully set an anchor. When he then reveals the Rosemary devices, the king, who is already anchored to the idea that this is a high-level trade negotiation, perceives the new devices as ultra-premium. Uchimura walks away with a massive contract for hundreds of units at incredibly high margins. But, of course, success breeds competition, and tension builds when a massive order is suddenly canceled. Turns out a ruthless merchant named Bujudogardia, literally known as the Merchant of Death, has stolen the Rosemary blueprints, mass-produced a counterfeit, and is completely undercutting Uchimura in the market. So, how do you stop a counterfeiter from destroying your market share? Uchimura's solution is absolute genius. He predicts the counterfeiter's next target village and secretly replaces the real devices with completely powerless dummy stones. When Bujudogardia steals them and sells them to the King of Rampage, the fakes fail. The king threatens Bujudogardia's life, and Uchimura swoops in to save the merchant. He effectively turns his greatest competitor into his most loyal distributor. But Bujudogardia wasn't even the final economic boss. Enter guild leader Viper. This guy is a corrupt elf hoarding a vital food staple called gin, just to create artificial scarcity and drive prices through the roof. Viper relies on monopoly and manipulation. Uchimura, however, relies on external supply chains. So while Viper sits there thinking he has the market completely cornered, Uchimura is working in the shadows. This brings us to what might be the most satisfying corporate takedown ever, the gin short squeeze. First, Uchimura conducts an emergency audit to flush out a spy in his ranks, a young girl named Nilla. Once he flips Nilla to his side, he uses her to feed false distribution plans right back to Viper. While Viper confidently prepares to block a local distribution of meat, Uchimura uses that roasted dragon meat as barter to import a massive, secret supply of gin from neighboring countries. He floods the market with free gin, instantly crashing Viper's monopoly. Viper takes a massive financial hit. His crimes are exposed, and he is exiled. Who knew real-world market speculation applied so perfectly to fantasy realms? Act 4. Combating a world-class calamity. All right, so the economic warfare now turns into literal physical warfare. A massive swarm of Arven wyverns, which is a world-class calamity, attacks the kingdom. And this poses a pretty provocative question, right? How does a human manager with zero magic defeat a flying dragon army? The answer? Superior organizational structure and unit cohesion. You see, before this, the demon troops and the dema-human troops absolutely hated each other. They fought completely separate battles. But Uchimura steps up, delivers an incredible speech, and unites these fiercely divided factions. Now, what's really interesting about this strategy is how he deploys them in what he calls the sword and shield tactic. The demi-humans, who lack magic but have the numbers, act as the shield. They create this huge, loud distraction at the border. Meanwhile, the heavy-hitting demons act as the sword, waiting silently in ambush in an abandoned village. When the wyverns are completely distracted by the shield, the demons strike from behind. They achieve a flawless, zero-casualty victory through perfect corporate-style teamwork. But wyverns are smart. They adapt. They launch surprise attacks that completely overwhelm the forces. Uchimura pushes himself to the absolute brink, analyzing battle data completely sleep-deprived. And he discovers a hidden pattern. The wyverns are specifically targeting areas with high numbers of magical females because they're the most nutritious prey. Using this exact data pattern, Uchimura sets a devastating trap, called the Last Rebellion. He uses the demon women to lure the bulk of the wyverns into a massive ambush. It works beautifully, culminating in this incredibly cinematic battle, where a giant, mountain-sized calamity turtle dragon emerges from the dust. Just when all hope seems lost, Lord Mao steps in, utilizes a magic conceptual construction, and literally one-shots the beast to save the kingdom.
Which brings us to the finale. Act 5. The salaryman becomes a king.
The dust has settled, the kingdom is saved, and Lord Mao pulls Uchimura aside for a private, highly confidential meeting. The Demon King looks right at Uchimura and asks, "What is a king?" Uchimura gives this standard textbook answer about leading a nation, but then Lord Mao drops an absolute bombshell. The ultimate supportive boss asks the former, completely undervalued salaryman to succeed him as the ruler of the new era. Lord Mao recognizes that true leadership isn't just about raw physical power. It's about strategy, kindness, and actually bringing out the best in people.
Naturally, Uchimura completely panics. But this moment reveals the core theme of the entire story. The only real limit Uchimura faced wasn't a lack of magic. It was his own corporate trauma. His deep-seated insecurities were just scars from a past life, where his innovative ideas were constantly crushed by toxic bosses. He almost resigns right there, ready to run away. But his new friends and colleagues, Yumandra, Sylphie, Nolkamo, Orlais, they all step up. They show him that his leadership has totally transformed their lives. With their support, he finally accepts his own worth. He realizes he doesn't need to be strong like Lord Mao. He just needs to be a strong king in his own unique way.
So I want to leave you with this question. Are you ready to break your own chains and step into your true potential? Uchimura's journey, from an invisible corporate drone to a legendary leader, proves that sometimes the only thing holding us back is the narrative we've been forced to believe by people who never even saw our true value. Your unique skills, hey, even if they're literally just spreadsheet management and basic empathy, might just be the exact superpower a different world desperately needs. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.